People say Chinese authoritarianism is more efficient. That's why they have grown so fast. That democracy is too messy, too slow, too divided. That China proves freedom isn't necessary for progress. Here's what I say. Congratulations. You've just fallen for the most dangerous myth of the 21st century. First off, the big lie. Authoritarianism equals economic success. Let's get this lie out of the way. Yes, China's economy has grown fast over the last 4 decades. Yes, roads, cities, ports, high-speed rail, all built faster than any democracy could manage. Yes, many Chinese people lifted out of poverty. That's real, no denial. But here's the truth. That growth didn't come from authoritarianism. It came from escaping it. It came after Deng Xiaoping abandoned the Maoist planned economy, introduced market reforms, and opened China to a global capitalist system. Let's not forget what actual authoritarian central planning gave China in the 20th century. The Great Leap Forward, 45 million Chinese dead of starvation. The Cultural Revolution, an entire generation traumatized. Absolute control, zero feedback, no exit. Authoritarianism didn't create Chinese prosperity. It delayed it by decades. And then got out of the way in 1978 when Deng Xiaoping finally decided to borrow ideas from Western capitalism. Here's what actually drove China's growth. Demographics. Hundreds of millions of young, able-bodied workers flooding into cities. Globalization. Western companies outsourcing manufacturing on a massive scale. Cheap labor, low wages, low environmental standards, no labor rights, WTO membership in 2001, which grants full access to global markets. Massive capital inflows, foreign investment and technology transfers. These were economic jet fuel. But they weren't created by authoritarianism. They were created by integration into a Western-led, rules-based global system. China played by global capitalist rules while keeping political control at home. And for a while, that bargain worked. But now the engine is stalling, and the authoritarian rot is surfacing again. You want to see what happens when authoritarianism stops tolerating reform? Look no further than Xi Jinping. He didn't just centralize power, he personalized it. He didn't just silence dissent, he criminalized disagreement. Under Xi, zero COVID became state religion. Private tech firms were crushed. Jack Ma vanished. Property giants collapsed under overregulation. Youth unemployment hit record highs. GDP growth fell off a cliff. Foreign investors fled. Authoritarianism isn't producing efficiency, it's producing fear, fragility, and stagnation. China's economy boomed when authoritarianism loosened, and now it's back in the driver's seat, and the car is swerving into a ditch. And let's talk about that word, efficient. Every CCP apologist and soft authoritarian fanboy loves to say, at least China's system is efficient. Democracies argue too much. But efficient for what exactly? Efficient at building roads? Yes. Efficient at silencing critiques? Yes. Efficient at covering up COVID for months? Also yes. Efficient at creating ghost cities, local government debt bombs, and financial black holes? Absolutely. You know what else was efficient? The Soviet Union, for a while. You know what's harder than efficiency? Resilience. Democracy is slow because it's built to absorb disagreement, criticism, and change. Authoritarianism is fast until it breaks. Ask Sri Lanka, ask Venezuela, ask history. Another favorite line, but look at India. It is a democracy but still poor. Clearly, democracy doesn't work, right? Wrong again. India isn't poor because it's a democracy. It's poor because it started late, has deeper structural divides, and didn't get a 20-year head start like China did under Deng. But it also has rule of law, political accountability, competitive elections, an independent judiciary, a free press. India won't collapse when its leader dies. China might. And by the way, if authoritarianism is so amazing, why is Russia's economy smaller than Italy's? Why has North Korea been starving since the 90s? Why did the USSR implode under the weight of its own efficiency? Economic growth isn't about speed, it's about sustainability. And China is now facing the bill for 4 decades of growth at any cost. And here's where Karl Popper comes in. He didn't argue that democracies are perfect. He argued they're the least dangerous form of government because they allow for nonviolent self-correction. All political power is dangerous, and it's therefore essential that we not only control it but oppose it. And that's why we have elections. That's why we have protests. That's why we have freedom of the press. It's not about utopia, it's about survival. Can your system correct itself without violence? China? No. Xi Jinping isn't going anywhere. Bad policy doesn't get debated, it gets enforced. Mistakes in China don't get fixed, they get covered up. Truth doesn't circulate, it gets censored. That's not efficiency, that's decay in silence. I lived under that silence. I saw what it does to people, to their minds, to their dreams, to their creativity. You self-censor without thinking critically. You never say what you truly believe in. You trade success only within the invisible boundaries set by CCP. In a democracy, you can argue, you can protest, you can fail, you can win, you can tell the truth, even if it hurts. And that's why people vote with their own feet. CCP elites send their kids to American colleges. Chinese billionaires park their wealth in Western banks. China's brightest minds are building startups in California, not in Shenzhen. They know freedom matters. China's miracle is fading. Youth unemployment is hidden because it's too embarrassing to report. Local governments are drowning in debt. Birth rates are collapsing. Confidence is gone. Growth is gone. Dynamism is gone. And in the end, that's what authoritarianism kills. Trust. You can't innovate without trust. You can't build lasting wealth without trust. You can't be a global leader without trust. And China doesn't have it. And democracies, for all their flaws, still do. So no, I'm not here to romanticize democracy. I'm here to defend it because I have seen the alternative. And I'll take the mess, the gridlock, the arguments, any day of the week over living in a society where telling the truth is dangerous and leaders are untouchable and fear is the policy. Democracy is slow, but it bends. Authoritarianism is fast, but it breaks. And if you think China's so-called economic rise proves otherwise, you haven't looked close enough. This isn't ideology. This is lived experience. And it's time the world stopped falling for the China myth.